What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Table Setters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined with my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show, episode 171. We are back recording on a Thursday evening. Typically, we record on those Wednesday nights. This is the second week in a row we have gone one day late, and it's because our New York Knicks have been playing some intense basketball, and no more intense, bewildering, unbelievable, shocking game than last night's game. And again, we know this is a baseball show, but sometimes there are other sports that just deserve a mention on here. And I made it through the day based on adrenaline. Stayed up late night last night watching. By the time the game was over, I don't think I could go to sleep for another hour. So I expect to be exhausted through the workday. It was actually fine, and now I'm starting to really feel like I'm dragging here. So thankfully we can talk baseball. But just quickly before we get there, the Knicks game last night, down 29, come back and win. Historic victory. Your thoughts very quickly.
I mean, I have so many thoughts on what happened last night. It was one of the best sports moments that I've witnessed in my lifetime, of course. And the thing is, we were watching this game halftime, and the Knicks are down 29, as you mentioned, the largest comeback in the history of the NBA Finals. But the thing about this team is we have to stop being shocked because we've watched them do it all year. The resilience, the DNA of this team is to never give up and believe in the character of this team. And it feels like they're on the precipice of greatness. Of course, you don't want to count your eggs before they hatch, but one win away. They have to get one win out of three,
Yeah.
head over to San Antonio, game 6 at MSG. Hopefully it doesn't go that far. But last night was magical. The hand of God, as they're calling it, OG Anunoby. And it's just a moment that will live in time. I get chills thinking about it. And just watching the celebration at Madison Square Garden with no one wanting to leave, something that's going to live forever. And if the Knicks can finish this off, it might be the greatest run in NBA postseason history.
Yeah, and credit to the Knicks for actually allowing all those fans to just stay and be there for however long after it was. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Most of the time, it's like if you're there for an extra 20 minutes after the game ends, no matter what the sport is, you're going to get some ushers starting to be like, all right, you guys got to go. And like people just weren't leaving because why would you want to leave? The atmosphere there had to be absolutely insane. I've heard a lot of people say, on the baseball Twitter sphere, like what is the baseball equivalent of this? And you could go a lot of different directions with that. But when I'm watching this game, I said to my wife, maybe halfway through the third quarter, like, I don't know why the Spurs are putting up all these threes. They're up by a million. Clearly, they've kind of lost their touch and they're just bombing threes. It's like lazy basketball. And to me, the baseball equivalent of that is, obviously it would have to be a huge postseason game, World Series game, and you're trying to tie up the series. You have a big lead, let's say in the seventh or eighth inning, and your bullpen just starts walking the ballpark. Like that's what it was. It's like giving the other team free passes. And for a little while, the Knicks, I felt like were like not completely capitalizing. Like we're a little bit, but they'd get it to like 17. Then they'd have a bad turnover. Or then the Spurs would hit another three, even though they weren't hitting that many in the second half. And I was like, you know what? Like there's missed opportunities here. And honestly, towards the end, one of the forgotten moments, very much like that game 7, Dodgers Blue Jays, the fact that we've gotten to witness those two games in a year time in sports is actually amazing. Like two historic all-time sports games. If you remember that game 7, like there are now huge moments in that game that we almost forget because there were so many other big moments that just started overtaking them. Josh Hart missing the dunk on the breakaway to put them up initially seemed like the nail in the coffin. Seemed like that would be the moment that we'd be replaying in our heads for decades to come. He'd have nightmares every single day about it. And it's crazy, obviously, that did not end up being the big highlight, thank God. But yeah, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, similar to New York sports moments, and obviously this is bias of the Northeast and the New York area, but the comparisons I was hearing, of course, and the Knicks have to finish it off, is the 1986 World Series with the Bill Buckner play with the New York Mets, because everyone forgets that was game 6. There was still a game 7 to be played. There's
True.
other moments that happened in that series, but when you think of the 1986 World Series winning New York Mets, you think of the Bill Buckner play. So I think when it's all said and done, if the Knicks are able to put a bow on this beautiful season that they've really accumulated throughout this campaign, everyone's going to think of OG and the hand of God and what we saw in that play, and just being able to masterfully have the crowd behind you throughout an opportunity to do what they did. And it's just like you said before, and it's just absolutely remarkable to watch this in real time because it just as much as the Knicks were able to capitalize, and as you mentioned, the turnovers and the sloppy play, just as easily they could be down. They could have lost
Mhm.
everybody. All four of these games. I was looking at the largest blown leads in NBA Finals history. Of course, we mentioned 29 points. The 2008 Celtics against the Lakers was the one they surpassed. I believe it was 24 points. But on that list is also a game from this series where I believe it was 12 points or 14 points with the Spurs and the Knicks. So this is a series that I'm taking a lot away from. Obviously, as a Knicks fan, biased towards wanting them to win, but I'm also taking away that the Spurs are going to be a problem for a very long time. This team is just an
Oh
absolute problem.
yeah.
Harper or Castle, not even to mention Wemby, as much as he's a pain in the ass and he is a guy that seems like he's a dirty player. This is going to be a problem team that may walk away when it's said and done. Health and all that considered, they may be a dynasty team on the waiting, and they're just not mature enough to finish games off because that's been the problem for the Spurs in this series.
Oh yeah, the youth has shown in the fourth quarter for them, whereas the Knicks, a little more experienced, have been able to figure it out, just put their head down and play. Just to finish up the conversation, then we'll get to all the baseball. You mentioned how it reminds you of certain sports moments as a fan. I got to ask you, so you're a Yankees fan, you're a Packers fan in football, Islanders fan, and Knicks fan, basketball. Like where, and it's tough to judge it because it's one day old, and like you need to know like what is gonna stand the test of time. And like you said, we need to know the result of the series before we really can place it. But as of now, like where in your sports memories do you think this is going to end up?
I feel like, and again, it might be recency bias and being a prisoner in the moment, but it feels like it's got to be top three. Just
Yeah,
what we witnessed. I haven't felt that way watching sports in a very long time. Just
long
this
time.
feeling
Yeah.
that felt like it was an outer body experience of just experiencing that with not only other Nick fans, but just the people you're watching with in the room and just watching on the screen because you're in disbelief. And truly what it is what sports are about. And we can kind of tie all these sports together, whether it be baseball, football, hockey, whatever your favorite sport is, watching big moments. That's what sports about. That's why you fall in love with it from the beginning and all the heartbreak and all your favorite teams. And for the most part, 97% of the time, it's going to break your heart, sports. But when you have a moment like that, it feels worth it. Obviously, the Knicks haven't won anything in our lifetime. 1973, they've been to the finals twice, once when I'm 5 years old and once when I'm 10 years old. And the rest has been sort of just a checkered history of just celebrating small wins. It just felt like all of that and the chaos, whether it was you name the stuff that was going on. We don't have to cover all the Nick chaos, but that has happened since that point feels worth it, And I think that's kind of a lesson you take away from sports where that feels worth it all of a sudden. And I guess it gives all these beleaguered fan bases out there when you're able to reach the mountaintop. And again, the Knicks have not won anything as of right now. As of recording time, we're waiting for Saturday for them to head over to San Antonio and trying to close this up. But it makes it feel worth it, all this the struggle. And you're a Met fan too. I'm sure you feel that in a big way because even though you've gotten to the World Series, it's different finishing it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think about like I was asking myself this question in my head yesterday, today, this morning about like, where does this rank right now? And for me personally, and listen, the Mets are my first team. Baseball is my first love as far as sports go. It's number one. It's at the top of the pyramid for me, and the Mets are that team at the top of the pyramid for me in my rooting interests. And they won in 1986. I was a few months old. I mean, I sometimes I feel like I actually saw it more than I actually did as a baby because you see the highlights so many times. It's played over and over and over again, or the highlights. But to be honest, like for me, the moments where I actually, was understanding as an adult, it's the two giant Super Bowls, the David Tyree catch, um, even the second one too, with the Mario Manningham catch, and then Ahmad Bradshaw falling into the end zone when he was supposed to go down, and all that stuff. Like though, I think those are still at the top because they actually won the whole thing in both Super Bowls. They were not supposed to win, especially the first one. So like the improbability just there. One of my I think my first memories like that really stuck in my head, and I had an understanding of it was the '94 Rangers playoff run. Matteau, you got to remember that it was 1940. They were trying to break that curse at that point. Like it was a big deal. But yeah, I remember the Matteau thing very well. And then obviously the game 7, Vancouver, the Bure penalty shot and the Richter save. I have that picture somewhere behind me over there. I also have Jeff Van Gundy. I think that picture I'm pointing to right now, if you're watching on YouTube, you can't really see it clearly, I'm sure, but it's a picture of Jeff Van Gundy like holding Alonzo Mourning's legs when they got in one of their fights, the Knicks and the Heat. And like those are my Knicks memories, like the heartbreak, the fight, the chipping. Like in the 90s, they were a very good team that could never get over the hump. But my memories are not of them winning championships because they didn't. It's things like that, like those iconic moments that weren't necessarily a win, but moments that'll stand out. But this one, dude, if they finish off this series, I think it might end up right underneath, for me personally, the Tyree catch and that Super Bowl win. I think that'll stay number one. That's going to be really hard to beat. I think it's going to take a Mets World Series for me for that to be replaced. But I think it would go Tyree and then the OG moment if they finish this off. And then probably the other Giants Super Bowl in 2012. And then the Ranger stuff, just because I think I was 7 or 8 years old at that point. And even though I do remember it, it's different when you're an adult, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about some moments that get lost in time, whether it's the Soriano go-ahead home run that eventually winds up being lost to the sands of time because Mo blows the save against the D-backs.
Right.
Not to mention the 2 games in the series with back-to-back nights where Tino hits the home run, and then Scott Brocious hits the home run. They're down by 2 runs back-to-back nights. Yankee Stadium's rocking. 2001 post 9/11. And that's remembered fondly because of what it did for the city of New York and all of that. But Yankees lost that series, and I think when I look back, I think of Luis Gonzalez and the bloop that falls in, and that's it, and breaking my heart as a kid. And again, woe is me. I'm a Yankee fan. I've seen a lot of World Series up until that point, but those are like foundational sports moments. And I just think of some of the kids that are watching right now, the foundational moments that are being cemented of watching this Knicks team and how lucky they are to really. Because it's not just the Jalen Brunson show. It's not just the Cat show. It's not just the OG moment. This is a team that is deep from top to bottom. You can even point to Jose Alvarado coming into the game with Brunson as one of the difference makers. And I get chills thinking about it because that is a ballsy choice by Coach Mike Brown. And like having the idea of saying, we're going to put Alvarado in there for the first time because we want speed. We want to get everyone behind the net and have an opportunity to catch up. And it's these small decisions and moments that it's very rare you kind of fall in love with teams like this. And as we wrap up this conversation, I know we're going long-winded, but I think it is worth it because it does tie into all sports fandoms, and especially baseball.
I agree.
I'm going to bring it back to the question I asked you a little bit a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the Cubs breaking the curse, the Red Sox in 2004. Is there something to this beleaguered identity? We're both Knicks fans, and I don't have the answer. Of course, we haven't crossed the threshold of it yet. But is there something about chasing the title? And I wonder what it will be like next year if there is a defense of the title. Does that change Knicks fandom, what it means to be a Knicks fan? Because some of the hard times, that's everybody wears like a badge of honor, those dark years. And I don't know, Michael, I pass it to you. Like, do you think that this changes in a way that foundationally changes what a Knicks fan means to be?
Sure, I think it's going to feel different if they go into the next season as champions. I mean, I hope to God at this point they do. Like, because if we're back on here next week, it could be a completely different conversation of heartbreak, obviously. But yeah, I think it'll feel different. I mean, I even remember when the Giants won that Super Bowl in 2007. It did feel different the next year, but I still very much had that craving to then win another one. And I remember that Giants team before all the Plaxico Burress shooting himself in the leg stuff. It did feel like a team that was going to go have a chance at winning another one, maybe another 2. Like they felt like dominant the next season. So that would be my guess is if they can win this one, you hope that they can then kind of become this next level, like dominant team instead of just one. And like you said, the guys that you named, it is one of the most likable group of guys. And I have friends at work that are like Boston Celtic fans, things like that. And they agree. They're like, I've gotten like living in New York, I've gotten caught up in this, even though I'm a Celtics fan. And the team is super likable. And for those of you listening, and probably there's some people out there thinking like, wait a minute, like I've seen these clips of like Knicks fans out on the street, like beating the crap out of Spurs fans and things like that. Listen, most New Yorkers and Knicks fans are not condoning any of that nonsense. A lot of those people are probably not even true fans. They're just people trying to get clicks and streams and, clout chasing, as the kids say. So hopefully, it's giving us a bad name for sure, but the team itself is insanely likable. And we'll see. We'll see where this ends up. You mentioned the Soriano thing and how it would have been remembered differently if they had finished it off. I think about the 2015 Mets, who obviously they ended up losing in 5 in the World Series. But that World Series, I always say, much closer than it actually looked because all those games, the Mets had leads going into the 8th inning, which is crazy. But if they had finished that and won that World Series, at the top of my pyramid probably would be Yoenis Cespedes carrying us through the second half of the regular season to get to the postseason. And then Daniel Murphy going on in just a run of insanity up to the World Series. And I would have remembered that forever right along there. But because they didn't finish off, it's way more down the list.
A really fun episode idea, maybe in the off season, would be to go through moments that would be monumental, of moments that get lost in time, whether it's the Rajay Davis home run that gets lost in the World Series in 2016. That could have been an all-time moment. Maybe there'd be a statue of Davis outside of Progressive Field. Like, we don't know. And this butterfly effect of all these things.
Last year's Game 7 alone could have like 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 moments for the Blue Jays on that list. Like, if you think about that, that's what I know I said it already, but that's another thought I had in my mind, is like, it's amazing as a sports fan, in less than a year's time, I just got to watch that game last night. And to be honest, the entire World Series last year was incredible, but like specifically that Game 7, like you go through 5 years, 10 years of not seeing any sports games that dramatic. To get both of those in the same year time is pretty, we're getting a little greedy here. Like, just unbelievable.
For sure. And there's a huge bias on our end that we have the fandom of actually rooting for a team that played a ridiculous game. And shout out to the Spurs making this. And if this does end in 5 games, well, it's going to be a closer series than anyone really would look at, because if Knicks would win the series 4-1, but they easily could have been swept. And I think that's what's lost on a lot of people. They were down double digits in every single one of these games. But let's talk about the podcast here at Table Setters Pod on IG and on X. You guys can check us out. Devin doing a good job posting notables over there, having conversations. So if you guys are interested in what we're doing here on the show, that's how you can get in touch with us. That is on Twitter, Instagram, of course. You can send us a DM. Devin posting notables, as I mentioned. And I don't know what our followers are up at this point, if you want to let everybody know.
We're at just under 7,000 followers. I think we're like 6.7, 6.8. And Shohei Ohtani was my headliner on the notables today against Mitch Keller, and he backed us up, hit a home run tonight against Mitch Keller, his 3rd against Keller in his career. But he did leave the game with, I believe it was described as knee inflammation. So it doesn't sound that serious, maybe being careful. But if you're someone like me that has Shohei Ohtani on the pitching side in fantasy baseball, you see that and you're a little concerned that maybe they're going to ease up on the pitching side of things, or we'll see. We'll see if anything comes of that, or if it's just a super, super minor deal. But yeah, the notables come out every day. We've had some people thanking us on there for doing that, so we appreciate that. We enjoy it. Has really helped our follow count. I did notice, I got to say, just to go very quickly back to last night's Knicks stuff, for the last 24 hours, our engagement, even on that post, which is a super popular daily post, has been like significantly down. And I don't think it has anything to do with us. I think it is that the algorithm is pushing a lot of the Knicks. There are so many things that have come from that game, and I'm sure mine more than most people's algorithms, being in New York and all that stuff. But like, I think to a degree it has affected the entire sports algorithm on Twitter. Hopefully that's all it is. But I did notice that over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, it's insane the amount of clips just from last night's game alone, and it's crazy moments and memeables, as the kids say. There's a lot of moments that the Wemby pointing at his head saying, "I'm in your head," and then it didn't really go well for him with the Mitch stuff. That might have been the turning point that no one's talking about, where Mitch just took a shot right in his jaw and got the flagrant himself.
Alvarado took a shot at him too.
Yeah, things turned around from there. But let's get to the opening say and talk about all the baseball news around MLB.
The opening say.
All right, so we're starting here with the opening say with the Chicago White Sox. And really the question we have for everybody is, can they actually sustain this? And of course, if you guys have been living under a rock or maybe following other sports, the White Sox find themselves in an unfamiliar position, at least in recent years. They're in first place in the AL Central, 36-31. They sit a half game ahead of Cleveland, have climbed to the top of the division, despite opening the season, if you guys remember going back, 6-13. So since that April 18th extra inning loss, Chicago has gone 29-17, tied for the best record in the American League during that stretch, trailing only Atlanta in all of baseball. And of course, that momentum's continuing, taking the first games of the series against the Braves. Their game got rained out tonight. And really a big reason for this turnaround for the Chicago White Sox has been an offense that has developed into one of the more productive units in baseball. The White Sox rank 4th in home runs, 6th in slugging percentage, 7th in on base, and 5th in OPS. You name the players, where it's Murakami, even though he's hurt right now, Colson Montgomery, who just came back, and Miguel Vargas. They're all on pace for more than 38 home runs, which is a remarkable development for a franchise, Devin, that has only had multiple 38 home run hitters in the same season only once. And this has been a team that's been around for a long time. So I pass it to you. Is this something that's very sustainable? We'll talk about Braden Montgomery in a little bit because I think he is another spark plug that can actually help them continue this offensive juggernaut.
Yeah, I think if the question is like, do we believe that we've talked about the White Sox on here before in passing. There was one episode where we talked about them and the Nationals together with really good offenses, surprising. But like you have to talk more about the White Sox and now like an even more serious conversation as far as like, can they sustain this? Are they a legitimate threat to win that division, postseason team? Like, it's more than just a surprise now. It's more than just, hey, they're better than we thought. They're kind of fun. Like, no, they're leading the division now. Only team in the AL Central with a positive run differential. It's only like +10, but still, they're the only team in that division with a plus run differential. So it's something to notice. You mentioned Murakami being out. They're 6-4 since he's been out. So they have more than held the fort. And I remember when that injury happened, we both said, like, if you're the White Sox, you just got to keep your head above water here. The division's nothing to write home about. So as long as you don't completely start floundering without him, like you'll still be around by the time he gets back. And 6-4 so far, he's still out a while longer. But the fact that it's not just Murakami hitting for power, like you said, Colson Montgomery, Miguel Vargas has been unbelievable. It's a big deal. So they'll get Murakami back. Eventually, they'll get the guy I'm calling the forgotten man, Kyle Teal. They'll get him back. Braden Montgomery's here. Noah Schultz will be back eventually, right? I know he wasn't pitching particularly well, but again, it's fun to have some of the kids up here. Hagen Smith, I just read maybe an hour before we jumped on here that he is a possibility to pitch this weekend for the first time in the big leagues. Hagen Smith, super high draft pick, electric stuff. The concern with him is walks. If you look at his walk numbers down in AAA, yeah, he's striking out tons of people, but the walks are a big time concern. So that I wouldn't get too excited about him yet because usually that doesn't translate very well to the bigs, even if you have a high strikeout number. But something to watch. I mean, he's a guy people are excited about, and they should be. To me, when I look at them, yes, if the question is, can they actually sustain this? I very much believe in the offense, for sure. At this point, like, how are you going to argue against it? There's really not a lot of ways to do that. The pitching side is my bigger concern. 19th in ERA, 4.28. 10th in batting average against, so not bad in that department. 19th in whip. I'm not saying they're the worst pitching staff out there, but when you look at the names, it doesn't make you think like, oh man, like they can make a run in the postseason. Davis Martin has been great. He has become a completely different guy, different echelon of pitcher at this point. So shout out to him. He outdueled Chris Sale the other night. Big thing. And to go to that game, actually, the Chris Sale against Davis Martin game, I believe it was a 2-1 game. This was a cool tweet I saw out there. So the White Sox are 5-11 in games in which they score 2 runs or less. So you hear 5-11, you're like, oh, that's bad. Well, no, 5-11 scoring 2 runs or less is the best record in major leagues with that split of 2 runs or less. So that's actually an impressive thing that they've been able to win that many games with 2 runs or less. And that's a kind of against my point of being concerned about the pitching, but I still am. They're also 14-6 in 1-run games. So to be honest, you could look at that in 2 different ways. You could look at that like, all right, 14-6 in 1-run games. They have the best record when they score 2 runs or less out of everybody. Either that's a sign of a really good team who knows how to win, or it's going to turn and those numbers are not going to keep up. They're going to even up. They're going to lose more than they win at the second half or something like that. Depends how you're looking at it, but I'm still in the middle on this team because I don't know how far the pitching gets them. I think they are definitely one of the most interesting trade deadline stories out there because they're going to be in contention more than likely when that comes around. To me, they're a year early, like a year ahead of schedule. So what does management do? Like, do they look at that? And a team like the Cardinals are going to be in the same boat of like they're early in their rebuilds. So do they push some chips in the middle of the table and say, screw it, we're going to go for it? Or are they super conservative and say, hey, we're going to just let this kind of go as is. We're going to keep the guys we have in the minors and let them develop and just continue the rebuild, not get distracted, kind of Marlins style. That's, to me, Peter Bendix, right? Like, don't care how successful we are. We have like a 5-year plan that we are not going away from no matter what we're doing on the field. I do believe they can win the division. I do. Anything more than that, I think it's unlikely as they're currently constructed. But if they're willing to go out and make some kind of move on the pitching side, whether it be bullpen or starting, who knows? But I mean, they're if anything, they are fun. It's great to see some of the youngsters like really just push this team forward. And there's more to come. Like there's more help on the way. So I'm fascinated by this team.
Yeah, fascinating as well. And I think, as you mentioned, the biggest question for them is the pitching staff. But I think what makes it most impressive, glass half full, considering the offense has done most of the heavy lifting, they've been able to kind of settle in with the middle of the pack production from both the rotation and the bullpen and make this happen. And there's also some hope. Shane Smith is on his way back. Opening day starter. He was a 2025 All-Star. So a guy that trying to work his way back from biceps tendonitis. We're not sure what that's going to look like. But again, help is on the way, and that the young guys are also kind of waiting in the wings, and they are ahead of schedule. I think another factor working in their favor is their schedule. If you look at their upcoming series against the Dodgers and the Yankees, they have one of the easiest remaining schedules in baseball. They have only 26 games remaining against teams currently above 500, and 13 of those games come against their division rival, the Cleveland Guardians. So even if the White Sox don't maintain the current pace, the schedule gives them a really realistic opportunity to kind of stay in front of this race here and at least deep into the summer have competitive baseball in Chicago. So, and the other thing I saw in a lot of these interviews is the players talking about the difference of the team that lost 101 games back in 23, 121 games back in 2024, 102 games last season. And the biggest word that all these players are using is confidence. Players have kind of openly discussed how different the atmosphere feels being around each other. You can see it when you watch this team play. They're not expecting things to go wrong, and they're feeling like they expect to win. Maybe the mentality we watched against Atlanta is indicative of it, because the White Sox never looked intimidated by the team with the best record in baseball. And you combine all of that with the emergence of prospects, the top 5 offense, there's a lot to be excited about. And like you said before, ahead of schedule, and this is a team to kind of watch out for at the trade deadline to see if they want to go all in with the chips in the middle of the table.
Yeah, and that's I mean, I can't wait to see what they will do at that point. I mean, again, if they not only are they leading the division, like if the playoffs started today, they would have a bye. They would have a bye in the first round. Like who the hell saw that coming? And the Braden Montgomery thing, just like got to give a shout out to him. Like you think about how quickly things can change, right? The Red Sox not so long ago trade Braden Montgomery and Kyle Teal to get Garrett Crochet from the White Sox. And we all praise the Red Sox, as we should, to go all in and go get that guy, right? Get the horse. And now, like the recent news about Crochet is that the injury is worse than they thought. Apparently, this is what he said to someone. Doesn't sound like there's any timetable. Red Sox are obviously floundering. It feels like every month there's a new controversy with the front office. Really, really poor communication. And the White Sox are over here in the division lead in the Central. Braden Montgomery just comes up, hits the walk-off grand slam when the White Sox are doing that like 1980s style broadcast, which like just made it all that much more cool. Kyle Teal hasn't been back since the World Baseball Classic, but he'll eventually be back in the mix, as we said. So, man, like you blink and things change in a heartbeat.
For sure. And we'll definitely be talking more about them, because if they can continue this level of play over the final months of the season, it's exciting. Either way, I think this is a good barometer where they are and whether they go all in and at the trade deadline. If you're a White Sox fan, you have to be very happy with the trajectory, especially after the 3 years we just saw in the past with the record-breaking losing season and all that. But let's get to the meat of the order and talk about the rest of the news around baseball.
Meat of the order.
All right, first up in the meat of the order is another young player that a lot of expectations are on his back, Bryce Eldridge. And what we saw from him this week is very interesting, because just 2 days after striking out with the tying run on third base to end a loss, he got another opportunity in the biggest moment of the game. And this time we saw him deliver. Giants trailing 10-6 entering the bottom of the ninth against the Nationals. San Francisco mounted another rally after scoring 5 runs in the eighth. Matt Chapman, unreal the last couple of weeks, kind of righting the wrong fantasy season he's been having. He doubled home a run to cut the deficit. Devers drew a walk, and then we had Lee Singleton to load the bases for Eldridge. 2-0 slider from Mitchell Parker. Eldridge launched the ultimate grand slam off the top of the right field wall for an improbable 11-10 walk-off victory at Oracle Park. And the other thing is, if you look at some of the history of this, I was sort of shocked by how many times this has happened in Giants history. One of the oldest franchises in baseball. Of course, this is his first career grand slam. History was made, though, on multiple fronts, not just for his career. 21 years old, 233 days old. He's the youngest player in Major League Baseball history to hit a walk-off grand slam. He passes Roberto Clemente. It was also only the second walk-off grand slam in Giants history when coming to the plate trailing by 3 runs. The only other guy was 1952, Bobby Thompson. So they were in New York at the time. So the comeback itself, we could sit here and talk about it. They were trailing 9-1 in this game through 7 innings. They entered the game 0 for 30 when trailing after 6 innings this season. It became the first team to win after trailing by 8 or more runs entering the 8th inning since Cleveland accomplished this back in 2009. A lot from this. Do you think this is a rallying cry for this team that can kind of get off the mat and do something in this very crowded NL West?
Oh man, that's a tough question here. I'll just add one thing to it. You kind of mentioned this, but with the first team since I think you said the 2009 Cleveland team. But yeah, teams were combined one win and 3,090 losses when trailing by eight plus runs after 7 innings over the last 20 seasons. Now they're 2 wins and 3,090 losses. So like that puts it in perspective, just as some of those other numbers did as well. Well, I'll start with Eldridge, and then I'll answer your question about whether I think this is something that could be a turning point for the franchise itself. You mentioning Eldridge being the first person to do that since the 50s. I loved when they told him that in his post game. His reaction was great, and he basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said like he wants to be the guy, like he wants the ball, he wants to be the guy, he wants the pressure. I loved his response to this, and you can't forget it was just a few weeks ago we and other people were killing the Giants for basically making Bryce Eldridge a glorified pinch hitter after calling him up. It's like, why are you calling this 21-year-old dude up to play like once every 4 days? And they mainly admitted he was mainly going to be a pinch hitter at one point. And he took things into his own hands and performed when he got the chance. And now looks like one of the best young players in the league. And they can't take him out of the lineup. If they do, I mean, we need to get back on him if that's the case. He's been fantastic. One of only 2 rookies with a WRC plus over 150. The other guy's Murakami, who we talked a little bit about in the prior segment. He's hitting 298, 385, 521. That's the triple slash line, 906 OPS. He's been wonderful. Relatively small sample size, but like a big enough sample size to believe like, yeah, we understand now why this guy was basically a top 5, top 10 prospect for the last year and a half or so. He's legit. I've been worried about the ballpark, like taking away from his pop. Because if you look at his numbers in the minors, like this guy in a lot of ways, like it wouldn't be a shock to see him be a similar player to like Kurtz. I don't seriously like the big lefty first baseman DH type. Like there's parts of his profile that are very similar. Obviously doesn't play in as friendly of a ballpark hitting wise as Kurtz does. But to go to the Giants, they have a few good things going right now. You got Eldridge playing really well. Jung-Hoo Lee has been absolutely on fire. So those two are going really, really well. Like you said, Matt Chapman has been tearing it up. So things have turned in a good way. I did not see this as like, oh, the Giants are going to go on a run. They're going to get back in the postseason picture. I feel like they've buried themselves a little too much. I still feel like they're too inconsistent. With that being said, I think the story here is Eldridge. I see him as being the face of this team over the next couple years. And that makes me wonder, maybe we mainly praise the Giants for being aggressive continuously after missing out on some guys. Aaron Judge, okay, Ohtani, some other people, right? And eventually getting Devers, signing Adames to the big contract, Matt Chapman as well. When I look at it now, I almost feel like maybe they would have been better off not doing 1 or 2 of those moves. And that's all hindsight. So I'm not going to kill him for it. But like, I feel like the kid should be the face of this franchise going forward, should give him the ball and let him run with it and build around him. But you have all these other vets, these stars, Devers, Adames, Chapman. So my question is, what do you do with these guys? Or like, can you do anything with them? I don't know if any of them are tradable. To me, like, Matt Chapman is probably the most tradable, especially based on how he started to play. But it's still a lot of money. I believe he's making $25 million a year at least, into I think age 38 or something like that. I want to say he's almost 33. So it's still a lot of money for someone to take on for a guy that's going into his mid-30s. Great defender. When he's going good offensively, he's a very good offensive player. Um, I don't know. I feel like they're in a little bit of a rock and a hard place. And even with the manager position, I have questions about what they're going to do in that realm too. I don't know where the Giants go. They're going to have some really, really difficult decisions to make at the deadline for sure.
I agree with you. I think that it's more about the Eldridge piece here than the Giants. I mean, they're 16 games back in the National League West, so that's out of the question. The wild card's still kind of out there in reach, even though it's far away, 8 games back. But I don't think we've seen enough from them. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They don't have the rally needed to kind of overcome the hole that they've dug themselves in, sitting at 28-41. This is a team that feels kind of dead on their feet, but you got to take the moments of this, of maybe as a Giants fan, you can say Eldridge looks like a cornerstone player that I can be excited about. And that sometimes you got to take solace in moments like that in a season that feels lost. And I'm not starting to bury, the Met fan situation too, but I'm sure there's things in this season, even though they're not playing well, 30-38, they are 5.5 games out of a wild card, that you're looking at the young players and being like, I'm excited about that. That's something you can take away. I understand the payroll's up there expecting a World Series contender, but sometimes you have to take the small wins when they're in front of you.
Well, yeah, because excuse me, it's a long season, man. So like if you're a Giants fan or a Mets fan in a season like this, like, and you're a hardcore baseball fan, you don't want to just tune out. Like you want a reason to watch. So you're right. Like I'm tuning in every night I can for the Mets to watch guys like AJ Ewing and Carson Bench and watch them develop and see Christian Scott take the next step. Nolan McLean, obviously Juan Soto is a superstar. So you do have to kind of find those things to grab onto. And like, even if they're playing mostly losing baseball, at least there's some entertainment value there that you can kind of look forward and kind of get glimpses of hopefully a bright future.
Yeah, agreed. So we'll definitely be seeing more of Bryce Eldridge in his dramatic moment. It seems like he wants it, like you said. It seems like he wants to grab the ball and be the guy, which is what you want to see from a budding superstar. But let's talk about a superstar, or questioning if he is, where Ronald Acuña Jr. The Atlanta Braves, of course, as we mentioned before, have been the best team in Major League Baseball this season, but they are once again dealing with a major injury issue involving Ronald Acuña Jr. So stop me if you heard this one before. The Braves placed him on the 10-day IL with a strained left hamstring. Came up limping, trying to beat out an infield ground ball during the 4th inning of Tuesday's game against the aforementioned Chicago White Sox. So he's day-to-day right now. Walt Weiss expressed some hope that he might be able to avoid the IL, but an MRI on Wednesday showed a grade 1 strain, and Atlanta decided to put him on the IL after all, rather than wait around and leave him on the bench playing around shorthanded. And Walt Weiss did go in front of the media today and said this injury was not terrible, but was still enough to require an IL stint. I think really what makes this so frustrating, I am an Acuña owner in both the fantasy baseball leagues I'm in, and we've seen it before. The previous injury we saw from him is what makes it frustrating, because he missed 15 days last month with a grade 1 strain in the same left hamstring before returning on May 19th, played 19 games between the hamstring injuries before landing back for the second time in just over a month. And you start looking at this of being, okay, it's another season where we're dealing with Acuña injuries. So, the Braves will be fine. I mean, you go back to the year he missed the whole year, famously won the World Series. So this Braves team feels deep enough to like withstand an Acuña conversation of being out for a long period of time. I mean, this is to me a problem, because I think part of the question we have to kind of tackle here as baseball fans is whether Ronald Acuña Jr. is still a superstar, because based on what we have here, the answer is that the superstar ability is still there. He's still part of the conversation, but availability has become the biggest issue in recent years with a guy we're excited to see on the field. His peak is undeniable. NL MVP honors, 41 home runs. We know that 149 runs scored, stealing 73 bases. We know what he can do. But when he's not available, what good is he doing?
Yeah, and it almost feels like the Mike Trout path, but in a way worse, because I feel like the injuries are loading up a little earlier in Acuña's career than they did for Trout. Eventually, they came for Trout in bunches too, and took a lot of games and numbers away from him. But the Acuña thing is almost more concerning to me, especially like, listen, the leg injuries, man, that all goes down the chain, and that's what we're seeing with Acuña. Torn right ACL in 2021, torn left ACL in 2024. This is the second left hamstring strain of the season, and yeah, of course, you can say it's only grade 1s, and like, we're relieved it's only a grade 1. I get that, but when it's a recurring soft tissue injury, like, that's not a sign of anything good, for sure. Since signing his 8-year, $100 million deal in 2019, which obviously was a steal, or sure seemed like one. Since that moment, he has suffered around 20 separate injuries. He's missed over 300 regular season games if you total everything up. This is a guy that got to certain numbers quicker than anyone. You want to look at like home runs, stolen bases, doubles. Like he just lit the world on fire very quickly. And I agree with you. I don't think the story here is how it affects the Braves, because they've, first of all, they've put up such a ridiculous record. They have a lot of cushion, and they have so many other players, whether it be Matt Olson or Ozzie Albies or Michael Harris, that just seem like they'll be fine, right? Of course, they'd rather have Ronald Acuña there with him, right? They're a better team with him. I don't think we should fool ourselves and say like they're better without him. I know they won the 2021 World Series without him, and that's a conversation. But yeah, I do think it's a legitimate conversation. Yes, he has superstar talent, like you said, but is he a superstar? He also wasn't playing to the Ronald Acuña level. He had some streaks where he was hitting, a bunch of home runs, but like overall, the overall numbers are not really eye-popping for him this year. So you wonder if he's had nagging injuries throughout the year he's trying to play through. But I don't know. If I'm a Brave fan, this makes me sad. And a guy that you probably thought of as a lifetime Brave putting up crazy all-time numbers now is like where is he going to end up? Like in the game of baseball? Like, is he a long-time Atlanta guy, or does he end up somewhere else? And I don't know. I don't really know what to make of this yet. Like, he could be back in 2 weeks, but I think the story is that these injuries seem to come a few times a season now, and sometimes he goes with the major injury where you don't see him for a year. So I don't know. It's a shame to see, because the guy's insanely exciting to watch.
And last time he went on the IL earlier this season, as you mentioned, Atlanta went 8-6. We saw kind of the combo of Mike Yastrzemski and Eli White platooning in right field during the absence. Drake Baldwin moved into the leadoff spot. Mauricio Dubon also saw time in leadoff, but Baldwin's hurt right now as well. They're kind of battling that, but nothing affects this Braves team right now. We have the second best run differential in the National League. They are sitting there with the best record kind of going away. And I think really the conversation about where he's going to be is interesting, because by my account, if I have it right, this is the final guaranteed year of this 8-year, $100 million contract he signed in 2019, because he has that $17 million club option for both 27 and 28. You would assume that they'd be picked up because it's club friendly, but at the same time, like 3 years flies by. So where's Ronald Acuña going to be? And I think that's more of this discussion of, it felt obvious that this is a guy who may have his number retired in Atlanta, but who knows? He could go wayward and go somewhere else, and maybe start to become a little bit of a journeyman after kind of spending most of his formidable years in Atlanta, which is kind of not what everybody else had on their bingo card.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some people where that sounds ridiculous, like, oh my God, or like Ronald Acuña, journeyman. But you just don't know, man. Like, things can change on a dime, and these injuries add up real quick. And like, if that is true, like this is his last guaranteed year, and he has just 2 years of options for the club to pick up, it's not the craziest thought in the world. Like, if he comes back from this injury and then down the road gets hurt again and it's worse, like, you don't think the Braves front office would have at least some conversations of like, do we want to spend 17 mil on him, or do we want to ask him to renegotiate that? And there's no way he's going to do it. Ronald Acuña is the kind of guy where if they asked him actually to take like less money, like turn down the option, but we still want you, but for less, he'd walk away in a heartbeat. And this is, pie in the sky stuff. I 99% chance he's still a Brave next year. But you do wonder, depending on what happens with his health the rest of the season, if there are serious conversations of like, maybe that's not the best path forward to keep him here, and maybe we can spend that money elsewhere. We're pretty confident in the rest of the core that we have here and the guys coming up in the next few years. Like, the Braves, I wouldn't put that conversation past them. Honestly, there's been a lot of people on Braves radio over the last few years of like having these conversations of like, Ronald Acuña might not be long for the Braves. So I don't think we're by any means the first people saying this, but I do think with every injury, it becomes a more serious conversation.
I mean, even if like we just kind of guarantee 27-28, which it's not, by the way, with the lockout, all those things considered,
right.
There is the conversation. Where's he going? Where's he playing in 2029? Because by all likelihood, he's going to be playing a long time after those contract is long done. Is he going to go elsewhere and have, like I said, a journeyman type of career, signing 1-year deals? Like, where does he wind up going? It's just a fascinating kind of development here where that 8-year, $100 million contract was the Players Association was not happy when he signed that back in 2019 because he was supposed to be getting superstar money. And he set a trend for what baseball sort of became, signing young players that are unproven. And it paid off for the Braves for a long time, but he hasn't been there in the big moments. Like I said, he had the World Series victory for the Braves, but wasn't playing. So they were able to kind of weather these storms, and it's almost like a good omen for them when he's not there. Like, okay, we're about to have a World Series season because he's not here with us.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think those potential conversations behind closed doors are even more possible because they've proven to themselves that yeah, Ronald Acuña is amazing, but like we can win without him. So like 17 million, I know it sounds like for him it's a deal, but not if he's in and out of the lineup like every 2 weeks, right? Like they could spend that elsewhere and still have a really, really good offense from what we've seen. So it's something to watch, and we'll see how the health is for the rest of the season.
So let's move to the other side of the ball with some pitching here. And Drew Rasmussen is delivering a very good season here, delivered one of the best starts of his career on Wednesday, overpowering the beleaguered Boston Red Sox in Tampa Bay's 7-5 win at the Trop. I mean, this guy, let's talk about him a little bit. In this game alone, struck out a career high 13 batters over 7 shutout innings, only allowing 2 hits and 1 walk, was carving up the order. He struck out Jaron Duran, Rafaela, Willie Abreu 3 times each. In both the first and fourth innings, he struck out all 3 of these guys swinging, and he's been very surgical. I think that's the word I put for him because he shattered his previous career high of 10 strikeouts set against the Yankees back in 22. I remember that game very vividly, generating 20 whiffs against Boston with his 4-seam fastball and cutter doing much of the damage as he worked up and down the lineup. The only time he has produced more whiffs in a start was that same 2022 outing against my Yankees where he generated 22. And this has been a very impressive stretch for him. The previous start was against the Marlins, struck out 9 over 7 shutout innings across his June 5th and June 10th outings. He worked deep into games without allowing a run, and he became the first pitcher in Rays history to record 22 or more strikeouts, 1 or fewer walks, and 3 or fewer hits across 2 starts. So his ERA, we can talk about it. It's not quite under the 2 ERA, but I mean, this guy's kind of knocking on the door. He's having a great season here. This has been awesome. His resume is starting to accumulate of being like, Drew Rasmussen's an ace.
Yeah, for sure. When we talked about Max Meyer potentially getting that ace title last week, and we debated it a little back and forth, why we think yes, why we think maybe not yet. And that's an ongoing conversation, seeing where his innings total gets to. And Rasmussen is in a way, I feel like Rasmussen's been around a little longer, but in a way, a same bucket of like, can he put a full season together, healthy season? Like he's had some injury woes that have slowed him down and kind of paused his progress. But if you look at the numbers in a few different ways, like he is an elite company here, like putting himself right next to guys that I feel like we talk about all the time. And we don't talk about Rasmussen all the time, which is why I wanted him on here today, at least to give him a quick shout out for what he's doing. Becoming one of maybe the most underrated starting pitchers in the game, if he can keep this up. So you mentioned it, second straight start going 7 shutout innings, 13 strikeouts this time. His batting average against of 192, that's the 4th best in all of Major League Baseball. The 3 guys above him, Miz, Chase Burns, Cam Schlittler. All right, those are the only 3 guys above you in batting average against. His whip is 0.88. That's 3rd best in Major League Baseball. The only 2 guys above him, the Miz and Cam Schlittler. Again, really, really good company. His K to walk is 5.92, 4th best in the major leagues. Only Schlittler, Christopher Sanchez, and Paul Skeens are above him in that category. So again, elite company. And then there's another one, and I love this. I love this stat too. If I can get it right real quick, make sure I don't read it wrong. But it's the here. The starting pitchers batting average against late in their outing. So from pitch 76 on, 76 and above. So when a lot of guys start to get gassed, right? Start to lose some of their stuff or their control. He's number 2 on this list of batting average against with pitches 76 and above. Batters are hitting 111 off of him in his pitches 76 and above, so late in his outings. So that's a stat I love because I think that can separate guys who are those 5 and fly guys that look really good and then can't finish, and guys that can go deeper in the game and still look really, really good. I remember Justin Verlander in his heyday was always super impressive because he would actually get better late in the game. It was like he was saving some stuff for those last few innings. He would like throw harder. It was always electric to watch because you feel like, all right, the 3rd time around, when we see this guy for the 3rd time through the lineup, that's when we're going to get him. And like, no, Justin Verlander, prime Justin Verlander, would just sit you down even quicker the third time through the lineup. So I'm not saying Rasmussen is that, but those numbers certainly support like, no, this guy's legit and he's an underrated pitcher right now.
Yeah, let's not forget there's the unique comeback element of this story. He's one of only 9 pitchers in MLB history to come back from 3 major elbow or Tommy John surgeries. So this guy's sort of the outlier. You know what I mean? Like, this is a guy, and he is the only one of that list of the 9 players to come back for 3 or more injuries. The only one to earn an all-star selection after making the comeback. Obviously, all-star last year, continued building on success. He should be an all-star this year. And he's a great StatCast profile to look at, some of the pitches he throws and what he's able to do effectively. Dig deep into it. The pitching run value is at 98th percentile, 99th percentile in fastball run value. And looking at the pitch choice and the arsenal he's been using, the cutter has been especially effective, holding hitters a buck 86 batting average and 276 slugging percentage. And the sinker has limited opponents to a 123 batting average. It's been effective, man. And I think for Tampa Bay, they're part of the larger conversation. They are playing remarkably well at home. They are 24-9 at Tropicana Field. And remarkably, they're 12-0 at home against divisional opponents. And this is the longest streak to open a season against division opponents by a major league team since 2009. So the Rays are playing great ball, 40-25 effectively right now. They're in a dogfight with the Yankees, who have injuries in their own right, sitting in first place by percentage points right now. And Rasmussen is a big reason why the Rays are where they're at right now.
Rasmussen has also like historically owned the Yankees. You mentioned that 110 strikeout outing, but he has some really good starts against the Yankees. And that's what you want to see if you're going to end up in a division race with these guys. You want your main guy to be really good against your rival there that you're competing for the division with. So we'll see where Rasmussen goes. And I mean, the 3 major elbow injuries, it's incredible. You just like hope he and McClanahan, like with that injury history, like, you know how good both of those guys can be. And you just pray that their health can stay good. So you can watch to see the full product and see what they really can become.
I would be interested to have Ryan Bass on here to discuss what has made Tropicana Field such an advantage this year for them. They're 16-16 on the road, but 24-9 is pretty substantial for a team that is using the Trop as some motivation. Obviously, playing at the Trop for the first time since all the stuff happened with the hurricane, and they played at George Steinbrenner Field last year. So that maybe home cooking is a little bit better because the absence makes the heart grow fonder. But they are playing. The Trop is a hard place to play. I saw it firsthand watching the Yankees get swept there. It was a hard place to play, and it will continue to be that way, especially when we got the arms like Rasmussen.
Yeah, and we mentioning Ryan Bass, we are trying to get him back on here. He is like the busiest man in all of sports. I've never seen a guy with so many jobs, and like all very significant jobs. He does a lot, and hopefully we have him on here so we can tell you all about it. We had him on here. I'm guessing it was more than a year ago at this point. I want to say it was right before last season. So we've been in contact with him. We'll try to get him back on to talk about the Rays. We're also reaching out. We want someone on to represent the White Sox, to have a full White Sox episodes, which I don't think we've ever done. We've done a lot of single team centric episodes over the years, not in a while, but I think the White Sox are one of the few teams we've never done that for. And now is the perfect time. We also want to maybe get someone on here to preview the MLB drafts. That's going to be here before you know it. So we are starting this is maybe our longest streak with no guests. And to be honest, it's mostly because we've just been kind of happy coming on here, the two of us talking baseball. But now I think it's the time we're going to get back on the guest horse very soon, hopefully.
For sure. Well, let's get into what's the word and talk about some of the stuff around baseball that is catching our eye.
What's the word?
All right, what's the word here? We're going to start with Mad Max Scherzer. He reached 3,500 Ks and career milestone for him. Wednesday night, we saw this happen. He's only the 11th pitcher in Major League Baseball history to reach that mark. Hit the mark immediately after coming off the IL, catching Philadelphia Phillies slugger Kyle Schwarber looking at an 86-mile-per-hour changeup to begin the game. We got a little bit of acknowledgement for a brief standing ovation. Good moment. Very historic achievement for Max Scherzer, and it's more about this standing there because the start wasn't good in its own right, but we can kind of gloss past that right now unless you want to discuss it at length. 3-time Cy Young Award winner, 8-time All-Star. He joined Justin Verlander as the only active pitchers to reach that mark. Finished the outing with 4 strikeouts, pushing his career total to 3,503. Walter Johnson sits 10th on baseball's all-time strikeout list with 3,509, so within striking distance of Scherzer, just 6 behind him, so maybe he can get it in the next start here. Again, did not pitch well here. Season-long struggles here, kind of watching the tail end of what has been a Hall of Fame career. My word for him is milestone. because we're looking at numbers that may not be hit by other pitchers coming up. I think this looking at 3,500 strikeouts, we might be able to see it, but we have to appreciate where it's here. Watching a guy with the longevity of a guy like Scherzer, even though he's not pitching to the ace level, got to give him credit for grinding out there and wanting to have another crack at a ring. He wants to be out there trying to win a World Series again.
Yeah, my word here is underappreciated. I just feel like this is a bigger deal than people are making it. I mean, 11 players in history, like that's a big, big deal. And I think maybe I'm not saying people wrote stories about it and there was acknowledgement, but I feel like maybe it deserved a little bit more. And I think because the Blue Jays haven't been great this year, and like you said, Scherzer has mainly been injured, but like when he's pitched, he's at like a 10 ERA or something like that. And like you said, there's a very good chance that this is it. This might be a swan song. So maybe that's why, but underappreciated. I do think that fits here a little bit. I have a lot on this. Like I got into this, got to the numbers. I think it's fascinating in a few different ways. First of all, looking at that list of those 11 dudes now, no, Nolan Ryan, that number will never fail to amaze me. 5,714 strikeouts. 5,714, just ridiculous. The other thing that caught my eye, man, and this is we talk a lot about how much baseball has changed over the years and how it's hard to compare eras because things are so different. I don't know, has any game changed as much as baseball, like as rapidly as it has? I just don't think so. You look at this list of 11 really good pitchers, great historical pitchers, right? And you go to the complete game section of all these guys that have struck out at least 3,500 people. So you have Scherzer now is on that list. You mentioned Walter Johnson, Gaylord Perry, Verlander, Don Sutton, Tom Seaver, Bert Blyleven, Steve Carlton, Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, and Nolan Ryan. The complete game numbers are hysterical. Scherzer has 12 in his career. Verlander is 26. Everyone else is in triple digits. Everyone else. The next lowest number is Randy Johnson at 100. 100 complete games. And then Roger Clemens is at 118. I mean, Walter Johnson, 531. It's crazy. So that just jumped out at me. I had to put that out there. But it's amazing how many boxes Scherzer has checked in his career, whether it be the 20 strikeout game or the World Series or the Cy Youngs, this or that. Like it's unbelievable how much he has done. And the other part of the conversation is like, is he the last one to get to 3,500? So this is the next thing I wanted to look at. If you look at it, so Scherzer and Verlander have reached 3,500 active pitchers. There's only 4 other active pitchers that are over 2,000, so 1,500 away. Kevin Gausman, 2,033. He's been around for a while, and he's still, more than 1,400 away. He ain't getting there. Yu Darvish, 2,075. He might be retired. I feel like that's still like is he retired or is he not kind of thing. Garrett Cole, who just came back from Tommy John, 2,269. A lot of work to do there. Chris Sale, 2,671. You don't feel like those guys have enough time to get there. I don't personally. Maybe we're wrong, but I don't feel that way. So then I wanted to be like, all right, well, what about some of the guys that are around that are younger, that are pretty prolific strikeout guys? So by the end of his age 29 season, Scherzer had 1,321 strikeouts. If you look at Sale, Verlander, Cole, and actually Aaron Nola all had more than that by the end of their age 29 season. They were actually on a better trajectory, but for the most of them, injuries have changed that trajectory pretty significantly. Nola, not necessarily an injury story, but just, I guess, like has lost his effectiveness pretty quickly over the last couple of years. Dylan Cease is one guy that you could say maybe could do it. The end of his age 29 season was last year, and he was at 1,231 Ks in his career. That's like 90 behind where Scherzer was. But like, Cease has big strikeout numbers. So if he has the longevity, if he can stay off the IL, he has a shot there. If you want to go even further, like to some younger guys, Scherzer had 598 Ks by the end of his age 26 season. Hunter Green, currently 26 years old, obviously hasn't pitched this year yet. He has 617 strikeouts. So ahead of Scherzer's pace at age 26. We know what he can do when he's right. Spencer Strider had 626 by the end of his age 26 season. So he's also was ahead of Scherzer at that age. So like in a way, you can go both ways here. Batters strike out more than ever now. So that's a plus on the side of like, can a pitcher ever do this again? Right? The high strikeout environment makes it feel possible. But the durability side, the innings management side of things, it makes me feel like I wouldn't bet on it. I just feel like there's too many other factors there. Um, just one other note, maybe two other notes actually. The only guy on the 3,500 strikeout list who did not pitch into his 40s was Walter Johnson. He played until age 39, but he started at age 19. So again, this shows that picture of longevity. You got to basically do this for at least 20 seasons, right? And Walter Johnson's a guy throwing a billion complete games too. So that's another thing to point to. Like these guys are just not going to have the innings totals, the durability to be able to get there. Scherzer is just the third guy on that list that is not a 300 game winner. It's him, Verlander, and Bert Blyleven. All the other 8 guys are 300 game winners on there. So interesting list to look at for sure in a lot of different ways, and interesting to kind of try to extrapolate some of the younger guys that are out there on a good pace to see if like we'll ever see this again.
No, it is fascinating to think about. And it is interesting looking at Scherzer's career. And I think of, offensively, it was David Ortiz who retired when he still felt like he had gas in the tank. And it's almost like to get these counting stats that we look at as these big benchmarks of whether it be wins or whether it be strikeouts, you have to sort of play below your actual skill level. And Scherzer's sort of kind of doing that, robbing Peter to pay Paul, where hopefully everyone remembers when it's all said and done, you remember Mad Max on the Nats and you remember him as just being dominant. And what we're seeing here, he's not himself. So like in regard, you're reaching these milestones, but you're a very vulnerable shell of who you are. And that's not to be disrespectful. It's just sort of the name of the game if you want to be able to stay there. And it's a very, very interesting needle to thread when you have a guy like him of trying to preserve your legacy, but also be able to have these stats. And I don't know what I would prefer. If I'm looking at a guy at the peak of my career, want to do what I want to do, you leave a little bit left out there where if Scherzer would have retired 5-6 years ago, you would probably look at it saying that's one of the guys, what if he continued? But we are looking at the situation in the world where injuries kind of caught up to him. We all thought it would. And he's not really the same pitcher anymore. So I'm not sure. I mean, I pass that to you. What do you think? Is that something that a decision, an elite athlete, a superstar like Max Scherzer has to make to be essentially an outside the rotation option that is just out there kind of collecting innings and collecting stats for the Toronto Blue Jays?
So I usually don't love when guys hang on too long. And like you said, like then you kind of like it can hurt the legacy and your lasting image is instead of the guy that they were, like you think of the guy getting roughed up at the end of his career. But I'll point you, and I think we've talked about this before. Like when Brett Favre retired, I think all Packer fans had this bad taste in their mouth, and suddenly it's, oh, you're gonna remember Brett Favre a different way than he should have been remembered. And like flash forward to now, other than like the off the field controversy stuff, I'm talking about as a player. Like I think we remember when you think of Brett Favre, at least I think of Brett Favre in his Packer days, the gunslinger. Like I don't think of the Jets stuff, even like the Viking season maybe a little bit, but like I think of him as a Packer, like an all-time quarterback, the way he played there. I think Scherzer will be the same way. I don't think this is going to affect his legacy big time. I mean, even just last year, he had another incredible moment where he was foaming at the mouth in the postseason. Like he had some big moments. So no, he's done so much that I actually respect him, like hanging on a little bit longer to get some of these big time historical numbers. When you're one of 11 dudes all time to hit a certain mark, like I kind of don't blame him. Like I don't give a shit what the ERA is. Like I'm one of 11 people in history to do this. So I respect it, to be honest. I think he's almost done, but I respect it.
Yeah, and his value is not just on the field anymore. He might as well be another coach on this team where you watch him coaching up the young players in the dugout for the Blue Jays. And if you watch any of the Blue Jays broadcasts, when he's in the dugout, he's talking to whoever, trying to make adjustments. And that's his value at this point, where you can see him having that role on the field. Maybe he will be a manager adjacent or be involved in a clubhouse in some way. He seems like he just loves baseball and doesn't want to be away from it.
Yeah, and good for him. I think a lot of guys like that are lifers. Like they, even when they do leave the game, like they seem to find a way to come back and be on a bench or be around the game somehow. It's something that I think is really difficult to leave for some people.
So our next one here is the Vegas A's and Brewers series that we saw. So if Las Vegas was supposed to be a preview of what athletics baseball could look like in a city before their planned move in 2028, the first 2 games against the Brewers delivered plenty of entertainment. Whether that's the type of baseball you want to watch, that remains to be seen. But the opener on Monday turned into one of the wildest games of this campaign thus far. The Brewers outlasted the Athletics 15-14 in 12 innings in a game that featured 29 total runs, 34 hits, 11 home runs, 14 pitchers, and 444 combined pitches. So according to the info provided by a lot of the other aspects there, it's only the fourth game in Major League Baseball history to feature at least 29 runs and 11 home runs. The Athletics did their part offensively. Watch them launching 7 home runs in themselves. Tyler Soderstrom, Nick Kurtz homered twice. Shea Langoliers, Zach Eloff, and Jonah Heim also went deep. Langoliers opened the game by crushing the first pitch he saw from Kyle Harrison, 483 feet to left center for his 17th home run of the year, the longest home run of Langoliers' career and the fourth longest home run in the majors this season. You can look at Andrew Vaughn collecting 4 hits and William Contreras having 3 hits, and then Bryce Terang, Jake Bowers, Christian Yelich all having key roles for the Brewers. I mean, the offensive explosion for me, the right word is preview, because I think this is more what we're going to get in Vegas with this type of weather we're getting, especially the ballpark being played. And the ballpark is going to be a little bit bigger dimension wise, so we're not going to see the same thing, but the ball was flying out of the ballpark. 29 combined runs with the highest scoring game in Major League Baseball this season. The previous season high for this year was 25, and the 11 combined home runs were the most in a game since the Royals and Orioles combined for 11 on May 4th, 2025. And 16 ABS challenges as well. New record since the system was introduced. So that was another note that we looked at. So I'll let you talk about Tuesday's game. It was a little bit more manageable, but it still was fun. We saw more home runs, 7 home runs on Monday, 5 more on Tuesday, 12 across a 2-game span. Are the Athletics just going to bang the ball out of the ballpark when they're in Vegas?
Well, here's the thing. I think an important part here is this is not their actual stadium, right? Their actual stadium in Vegas that'll be ready, I guess, in a couple of years, hopefully. I believe it'll be a dome, right? Or at least retractable roof or something like that.
I
don't think they're going to be.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's going to be closed a lot. So as far as, is this absolutely going to be the same thing? I think it's going to be different. What you mentioned, the dimensions, if the roof is closed, it's going to change, the thin air and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be different. I don't think we should jump the gun too quickly there, but I guess we'll see. It remains to be seen. I mean, my word is preposterous. Watching this was ridiculous. Someone, I don't know if you saw Lawrence Butler's home run, I believe last night, but I tweeted out, like, was that 600 feet? Like, that looked like a 600-foot home run over the batter's eye. Someone tweeted out that watching that home run or watching this whole series is basically what it felt like to watch steroid era baseball every single night of just unbelievable blasts. So yeah, I didn't appreciate it as a Kyle Harrison fantasy owner, one of the few guys on my team that had been doing really well. My team is absolutely floundering, but one of the few guys, he goes out there and gets absolutely shelled. And I think pretty much anyone that goes out there does, unless they can adjust to it somehow. But yeah, I don't have nearly as much to say about this as I had about the Scherzer numbers and all that stuff, but entertaining. It reminded me of, we're talking a lot about comparisons between different sports tonight, whether it be the Knicks or other things. It reminded me of that Chiefs-Rams game, I think in Mexico City a few years ago. One of the most entertaining football games ever. It was like 50-45 or something like that. That's what that first game, Milwaukee and the A's, that's what it reminded me of.
So the other thing about this, a preview kind of fits into the mark of, obviously the Athletics have to develop a relationship locally with the Vegas market where, you have the youth events, the library programs, volunteer work, players out there making their name out there and driving the tie with this Vegas market, making them feel like there is a connection with the Golden Knights and with the Raiders. They have to kind of immerse themselves. And we saw a little bit of what we see at the Vegas Golden Knights, I think, of what they've done. We saw appearances by DJ Paulie D. The Backstreet Boys are involved here. Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys. Bruce Buffer. Raleigh Fingers. Of course, you would think Athletics Hall of Famer kind of out there as well. But I think we're going to see more of this. I don't know what the word is, but we see with the Las Vegas, with the Golden Knights, obviously in the Stanley Cup final. But the game day experience might feel a little bit, whether it's in a dome, whether the dimensions are different. It feels like they want to be outside the box of bringing sort of the glitz and glam of Vegas and sort of tie that into it. And it's going to be an interesting dichotomy because you have the Athletics, which is a historic franchise. I don't care what city they play in, Philly, Oakland, Vegas, Sacramento. This is a historic franchise, World Series lineage. To tie it in with the kind of the gimmick of the Golden Knights and the Vegas stuff, I'm going to be interested in how they be able to do this, because that seems like what the Vegas stuff is. And the Raiders have the same challenge right now to develop an identity that fits the mold of what Vegas fans are looking for.
Yeah, I mean, you have to compete, there's a lot to do in Las Vegas, and like you're gonna have to be providing some entertainment in lots of different ways to make it an attraction that people want to come to, whether it be real fans that are Vegas people that live there, or the tons of people that go there to visit for other reasons, to pull them off the strip and get away from the blackjack table. Like, you have to offer something that they feel like is guaranteed entertainment. We're going to have a good time. So, yeah, just a step one here for the A's as they head a little closer to Vegas.
So moving ahead here with Dalton Rushing, he's quickly become one of the more polarizing players in Major League Baseball. And for many around the league, I think it's not just because of what we're seeing with this production on the field. I mean, he has a bad reputation. My word for him is villain. Kind of go through all this stuff we've seen here. A series of incidents from the 25-year-old building a reputation that has many fans kind of looking down at this guy. And I guess the value of a villain, we talked about Wemby being the villain in New York, and that plays a part for Dalton Rushing. I don't know how this is going to play out for him, but the latest controversy came during the 12-3 winner of the Pirates back on June 9th. In the fifth inning, he attempted to break up a double play by sliding into Jarrett Triolo. And I mean, the problem was that he appeared well away from the bag when the contact occurred. So that's a problem in its own right. He was called for runner's interference, resulting in a double play. Obviously, on Twitter, most people are criticizing what happened because the runners are required to make a reasonable attempt to reach the base while avoiding the fielder. And many people, myself included, feel that Dalton Rushing failed to do so. And I think you can kind of put all these things together, because if that was an isolated incident, okay, guy, hard-nosed play, trying to get into second base. But if you look at sort of the full picture of Dalton Rushing, April 18th, loses to the Rockies. He kind of looked at this. He was the dude who came out and said Colorado's offense approach, we talked about in the show, they said that their offense is fishy. We discussed it here. Dave Roberts publicly dismissed the suggestion, saying that they simply saw bad breaking balls. There was nothing unusual about their success. A few days later, Dodgers-Giants series, Jung-Ho Lee was thrown out the home plate by Rushing, appeared to be either injured or upset. Rushing walked back towards the dugout. Cameras appeared to catch him mouthing, "Fuck him." The next day, Rushing was hit by a pitch from Logan Webb, later delivered another aggressive slide into Willie Adames. Following the game, Luis Ariz described Rushing style as, quote, "not good for baseball." We also saw April 26th, cameras appeared to catch him calling Cubs catcher Miguel Amaya a fat fuck after he stole second base. Nico Horner later confirmed that's what he believed Rushing had said and stated he wished he had confronted him about it. And then again, April 28th, was involved in another heated moment after being charged with a pitch clock violation when the umpire allegedly did not hear his timeout request. He was visibly upset following the strikeout. Obviously, that incident's not going to carry as much weight, but again, adds to the full picture of what he's been able to do. I mean, as the criticism mounts, I mean, he had to address what his perception is. May 7th, did an interview with The Athletic. I'm sure that you've read it at this point, Devin. He acknowledged that people had begun labeling him a villain, but he said he viewed his actions as competing at the highest level. He also said that he did not want to be viewed as a bad guy on or off the field, though he has also made it clear he was planning to not change the way he plays as a player. My word is villain, because this is a dude who kind of feels this is who he is, and it doesn't feel like a one-off gimmick. This might just be he's not a good guy.
Yeah, and I'll add one thing to that. Like Chris Rose does these interviews like in the dugout, like before a game with a couple guys, and it turns into a podcast, but it's also clips on Instagram, things like that. And he had one a few weeks back, maybe even a month back, with the Dodgers, and I think it was Alex Call and Kike Hernandez. I'm pretty sure it was those two. And and they're all like fun for the most part, like not hard hitting questions for the most part. They're kind of light. And I think one was like, which teammate would you least want to sit next to on the flight or something like that? It was something along those lines. And like one of them hesitated to say the answer, and the other knew. You could tell they knew why, and they kind of looked at each other and laughed. And one of them just said, like, say it, just say it. And they said Dalton Rushing. Like, so I think there's even some of the teammates. There's a clip of like Rushing being like close to Ohtani, like behind him, and Ohtani like sees him and like moves away. There's something about this dude, man. Like, and I think even his teammates, I'm not saying they dislike him, but are just see him in a certain light. So if I'm coming up with a word for Rushing's bad reputation, my word would be deserved. Like, I don't think this is just a case of the internet being the internet and kind of, snowballing too quickly. I mean, he hasn't helped himself, man. To me, he comes off as like a frat guy who then like years after college, it's still his entire identity. Like, that's to me the kind of guy he seems to be like. So whether it's good for the team or not, I mean, sometimes it's a good thing to have a guy like that, and other times it's a distraction. I don't know if I think for the Dodgers, like, they're probably the perfect team to handle it. I don't think it affects them at all, to be honest. But He's villain's a good word because he hasn't done anything to my team, but I definitely dislike him. I'm going to be honest.
No, but it's coming. I mean, you look at just who he is, and I think for the Dodgers and their fans, you have to weigh it out. There is value for players like that. I mean, we talked about Jose Alvarado for our Knicks, that he is a guy who plays hard nosed basketball, and a lot of teams, if he plays against your team, you're not a fan of him. I think this is different though, because this is sort of he's doing things that are just, it's
This
not
is
to
more
gain
like
anything for you. It
this
feels,
is like
it feels
I'm not a big
inflammatory.
I'm not a big hockey guy. I know you're the bigger hockey guy, but like I go through periods of time where like I watch more hockey for a couple of years, then I fall out of it, then I get back into it. And like it's not just when the Rangers are good, so I wouldn't call it front runner. I'm sure I watch them more when they're good, but like I kind of come in and out of it for some reason. This year I fell big time out of it, and mainly because the Rangers were horrible. So, I don't know, maybe I am a front runner, but it almost is in the same vein of like a Sean Avery, of like those kind of things where it's like, dude, like fucking grow up. Like it kind of I think that's a decent comparison. Obviously, Avery was around a lot longer than Rushing's been around, has a lot more of those incidents under his belt. But what do you think of that comparison?
I think that that's well founded, but I think looking at his teammates, it felt like a lot of his Rangers teammates, especially in those years, that liked him. So going back to your
Sure.
comments about not no one really liking Rushing, if he's a glue guy that's doing these things, like he's bringing people together and getting people out of their game, sliding, and all of a sudden pitchers are sort of so annoyed where they're trying to get revenge on this player, and it adds to better pitches seen by his teammates. I don't know. It just feels like villains are good in baseball, and to be a disliked player, especially on that team, as you mentioned, it's probably a good place to be, but we have to remember his role here. This is not some superstar player. He's a backup catcher right now. And if the Dodgers didn't have Will Smith under long-term contract, he might have a larger role, and maybe he will have a larger role in the future.
Well, it's interesting because I think I just read that Will Smith's going on the IL. Maybe he already is on there, but that means we'll see a lot more of Rushing in the next couple weeks too. So maybe there's more to come. Maybe we'll talk about him again soon.
I mean, like a clock, dude. It just seems like every hour on the hour, it's going to be something with him. And every time he plays a division game, I mean, circle the Dodgers and the Giants. It feels like there's legitimate heat with Rushing and the Giants. And the Giants don't have a lot to play for. We mentioned just to kind of cruising through, trying to get small wins. Maybe putting Rushing on his ass is going to be one of the wins they get this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you listed all the separate incidents, but to me, the one that was the most egregious was the one with the Cubs, where it called Amaya like a fat whatever. Like, and you saw Horner. It was Nico Horner, right?
He's the one
At the
that said he
plate?
wanted he had heard
Yeah.
it and he wanted to confront him about it, but
You
didn't
saw
know
him, like-
did he actually hear did he say what I thought he said?
Yeah, he like looked and like, but like that was like it's just completely uncalled. I mean, the Lee one too, like basically not caring that he might be hurt. Like they're all pretty egregious. The Cubs one stood out to me. Like really put him over the top of like, oh, this guy actually is an asshole. Like it's not like he actually is. He's living up to his reputation. So more to come. We'll see what the next move for Rushing is.
Maybe we'll make it a segment. Just what has Rushing been up to this week?
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, well, let's get into our College World Series conversation quickly and talk about a lot of the stuff happening as we build our road to Omaha. All right, so we discussed a lot of the chaos happening in college baseball. And like, again, Devin and I have been watching it very closely, a lot of baseball news that we want to discuss. And I mean, what we're seeing for the College World Series, and it begins Friday afternoon. So if you're listening to this, get ready for a lot of the stuff. The road to Omaha has produced a lot of probably the most intriguing field in recent memory. So I pulled a lot of the odds from the Vegas books here. 5 of the 8 teams are from the SEC, as we covered last week: Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, and Oklahoma. North Carolina enters as the lone ACC representative and a slight betting favorite at plus 290. Georgia's at plus 300. Texas at plus 320. West Virginia's at plus 700. Mississippi's at plus 800. Alabama is a distant with plus 1,300. Oklahoma at plus 1,800. And Troy is that biggest long shot. No shocker here, plus 2,700. Everyone has a different path. We kind of discussed it last week, so we're not going to get too far into really what has been the story. Obviously, Troy is the underdog story here. North Carolina brings a very deep roster. I guess what we want to discuss here is predictions. And what we could do is kind of talk about each of the series we're looking at, where West Virginia is taking on Troy, North Carolina versus Mississippi, Alabama versus Oklahoma, Georgia versus Texas, and then kind of pick our College World Series finals. If you want to sit there and kind of come up with our national champion, feel free to take it where you want to go.
Sure. And or you got to remember here, like this format, a little different, where basically kind of like winner bracket, loser bracket, right? So, for example, in bracket 1, you got West Virginia against Troy, North Carolina against Ole Miss. The two winners of those games will move on to face each other, but the two losers will go down in losers bracket, and one of them can still move forward. If you lose your second game, you're done. And I won't go through everything. I'll just give you a little snapshot of where my head is at after watching the regionals and the super regionals. Like, to me, my two favorites and who I think it's going to come down to at the end, if I'm putting a bet on it, I see North Carolina and Georgia kind of being the teams that have a future date for it all. That's my prediction there. But I will say that the two teams that maybe I could see as a surprise, or maybe one, I'll give you one. The one team I could see surprising a little bit is Oklahoma. Like, they're out of these 8 teams, I feel like they're not being talked about a lot. Been on a little bit of a roll, dude. Like, they have it all. They have a couple real top of the rotation pieces. They can hit offensively. They've been hot. So I think they're sneaky. Like, they match up with Alabama in that first game. Like, I'm taking Alabama there. Like, I'm not too high on Alabama right now, to be honest. I mean, I think I said Alabama. I'm taking Oklahoma there. So I think Oklahoma is a team to watch as maybe someone that could surprise there. I almost wanted to say West Virginia could be a surprise too, but I like them a lot at home. They were, one of the hosts there for a little while. Those games in front of the home crowd were electric, and I do think they feed off of that. So yeah, gun to my head, I think North Carolina, Georgia. I'll go North Carolina as my champion. Maybe it's the bias in me. I like watching Eric Paulson, Long Island guy, have success there, but I do like that team. Feels very well-rounded. Texas is going to have a lot to say here. Georgia is just insanely loaded with talent, like insanely loaded with talent. So I would not be shocked, but I'll go North Carolina, Georgia, Oklahoma as my dark horse there, but North Carolina takes it for me.
Yeah, and just some footnotes for some of these teams here. Alabama's the first trip to Omaha since 1999. So that's a little bit of story for them. They're formidable. Justin LeBron, of course, number 9 draft prospect, headlining the roster. Someone to watch here if you're interested in the MLB draft and where he's going to go. His star power feels immense. Like, I think that's one of the reasons the program has turned around. First time since 99, as I mentioned, being in Omaha. There's a reason why you're there. As far as North Carolina goes, I have the World Series being North Carolina and Georgia. I have Georgia winning. And you look at both those teams, I believe both of them are super deep. You look at North Carolina and you look at their 5 MLB pipeline top 200 prospects there. The interesting part about them, they do not have a first round prospect, but they have this depth across the roster, multiple players who could go in the second or third round. And I think that's what sells me on North Carolina, because you look at the opener that they lost in the Super Regional, still responded by winning the final 2 games to get to Omaha. They also are the lone ACC representative, so there's some pride there for it. 5 top 200 prospects. There's a lot of balance for this roster. They're super deep. And I think look at both these teams, even Ole Miss, as you mentioned, they arrived sweeping Auburn in the Super Regionals, and they have 3 MLB pipeline top 200 prospects. Cade Townsend at number 27, Taylor Rabe at number 90, Will Liebert at number 179. So they're another players to be continuing to watch here. And the other piece I want to talk about is Oklahoma as well, because you mentioned them before. Oklahoma was certainly interesting to watch, especially how they got here. Just the story of like what brought them here. They deserve a lot of credit for it, because they got sort of kind of roughed up by Georgia Tech in the regional play, then had to beat Georgia Tech twice to advance. After that, they absolutely trounced Kansas in the Super Regionals. And I think the most surprising part was pitching, because we discussed it here. It has not been a strength for them and showed up in a major way when it really mattered. So it's interesting to watch them be able to put it together, as you mentioned so aptly before. And for Georgia, man, like the reason why, and I think both of us have him there, Daniel Jackson is an absolute star. First SEC catcher to produce a 25 home run, 25 steal season, SEC player of the year, 4 for 10 with 2 home runs in the Super Regionals, the game winner in the clincher. Georgia themselves has 5 MLB pipeline top 200 prospects. Daniel Jackson sits at 39. Joey Volko is at number 73. Trey Phelps at 116. And again, I guess really looking at Georgia, looking at what they've done, they've accumulated trophies all year. They won the SEC regular season. They won the SEC tournament. They led the nation in home runs. They delivered one of the loudest super regional statements in the country, blasting home runs, 9 of them in the 2 games against Mississippi State. I think looking at the SEC regular season title, the SEC tournament title, they have the best power. I think they're going to walk away with the College World Series. But it's gonna be a good one if North Carolina and Georgia are able to get there and do their thing.
Yeah, you and I have the same matchup, just different results in the matchup there as far as who comes out of it. But it'll be fun to watch. I did see a note. I believe it was, if you look at the last three, including this one, College World Series, 8 teams. North Carolina is the only team that has appeared in 2 of them out of all those sets. So it's been a lot of parity in college baseball over the last several years. Not a lot of repeat teams to get to this final 8 stage. North Carolina is the only one in the last 3 years to be in multiple. I don't believe they were last year, but the year before that we're in there. So we'll see if they can finish the deal this time, but it'll be fun. And I was talking to someone on, I believe, a follower named Matt had asked, had listened to our last episode and said he enjoyed the college coverage, but was not a college baseball fan, has never been able to get into it, and asked, like, is it legit? Like the play, like, would it be able to get into it? This is what I said. And if anyone else is listening is in the same boat, like, there is a reason that we say constantly on this show, it seems like every other episode, that the pipeline from draft to Major League Baseball seems shorter than ever. I mean, it just seemed like yesterday that Nick Kurtz was bombing balls at Wake Forest, and you blink your eyes, and he's doing the same thing for the Athletics. And there's a lot of other examples of this. I mean, Paul Skeens wins a national championship at LSU, and it seems like months later he's striking out 10 dudes for the Pirates. So that's what I would say. To be able to watch these guys in college in a big moment, and some of them you're going to see quicker than you realize in a big league uniform. Whereas years ago, and for a long time, it seemed like even if you were drafted out of college and not high school, it took them a long time to get there, right? And that's changing a little bit. So yes, I think it's absolutely worth it. If you have not checked it out, this is the perfect time. This is the heat of the moment, the final 8. Go check it out. We're in sports heaven right now, man. We got the College World Series starting. The World Cup started today. The NBA finals have been unbelievably dramatic. The NHL, the Stanley Cup finals have been fantastic. Offense all over the place. Middle of the baseball season. I mean, doesn't get much better than this. I think US Open, if you're a golf fan, is starting here in Long Island soon. So we're in a good spot.
The other player I want to make note of, I know you talked about West Virginia a little bit, but I just want to put some love on Gavin Kelly. It just, like, watch what he did in the Super Regionals, where he had that the home run against Kyle Poly, and he stood out. And again, he's been discussed out there as a future top 10 pick. And if you kind of look at what he's been done on, he's a 2027 underclassman. So he's someone to watch. Matter of when he's going to make it to the draft remains to be seen, but watching him sort of mature and blossom as a player, it's been cool to see some of these names. And they're ones you remember. As you mentioned before, the pipeline's shorter than ever, and it's going to be sooner than later. You see him on your favorite teams all of a sudden just kind of contributed in a big way. It's going to be interesting to watch. I think this is a lot of fun. Make sure you guys check it out. Most of the games airing on ESPN. I believe that's how you can do it. If you have the ESPN app, you can check out the College World Series. It's worth checking out. And to the guy that was talking to you on X, you kind of have to just dive into the pool 2 feet in. You can't sit there and just like, oh, I'm waiting for someone to watch with or potentially have a favorite team. Go in the mindset of just, if you are a baseball fan, I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not paying attention to this farm system of what eventually becomes Major League Baseball prospects, and kind of watching all these players and these programs develop these players that are Major League ready. It makes so much sense to kind of have a better understanding of what your teams need. And you could watch the draft with bated breath. And I do believe in our lifetime, may not be in the next few years, that the MLB draft will eventually be just like the NFL draft, the NBA draft, where it's going to be an event. And maybe it takes this collective bargaining agreement to put it somewhere else in the schedule where it feels like it actually has an event. Maybe in the offseason, we can sit here and actually have a conversation about making it a spectacle like we saw. I don't know if we're going to reach, like I said, in our lifetime, is it going to reach the NFL draft where you have thousands of people crowding outside of an arena? Maybe not. But to have at the same level of the NHL draft where you can actually have people come up and feel like you're watching it, where it does have transactional value for your team. If you're a Pittsburgh Pirates fan or a Chicago White Sox fan or Washington Nationals fan, that this player is going to contribute in the near future, just like the NFL. I think we're getting there. We're closer than ever to having these players making a direct impact. And some of these dudes, like I'm saying, remember the name Daniel Jackson. Like, this dude's going to be a star. And there's a reason why he's kind of been successful wherever he's been. This dude is going to contribute in a big way for wherever he lands in Major League Baseball.
No, I'm with you, man. Like, I mean, Seth Hernandez was drafted out of high school last year by the Pirates. And I feel like if you watch him, you got to feel like you're going to see him in the bigs in like a year. And he's a young kid, and that's high school. I mean, start putting more high school baseball on TV at this point. If that's the guys if those guys are pitching high school ball. So yeah, it's the product. The pipeline is great. The product is amazing, and I mean, we're in a good spot. So, like we've said so many times before, hopefully everyone can find a way to keep that rolling. And I will say this: it's also this is the bad side of it, but kind of with in a good way and a bad way. Get into college baseball now in these last few weeks of it, because if there is no Major League Baseball next year for a little while, like college baseball is going to have its moment. I feel like it already has had its moment a little bit, but people joke like, "Oh, we're going to be watching the Savannah Bananas every night." No, man, watch college baseball every night. Hopefully, if that's the case. I mean, I hope it doesn't come to that, but that to me is the better option.
For sure. It's definitely something I've considered as well as a backup parachute plan if I need to get my baseball fix. If the billionaires and millionaires can't get along and kind of come with an accord sooner than later. But before we move on to coming around third, I know you got some polls that you posted on our X at Table Sitters Pod. You want to go through those?
Yeah, I thought we had two this week, but I can only find one right now. Maybe I only posted the one. So I just like to go through these really quickly and just see if you and I agree with the results or if we have something notable to say about what the results were. So there was a lot of talk over the last week about a few very high paid players. A lot of people starting to dump on Alex Bregman, Cubs fans starting to show some frustration. Bregman himself saying he's been terrible. Manny Machado, it's starting to turn on him real quick. And then Kyle Tucker, there's been not as much conversation as you'd think, but like this guy's making ridiculous money. There's been some comparisons of look how much better Cody Bellinger has been than Tucker when, those two were being compared a lot in the offseason before they signed. And then obviously Bo Bichette has been kind of a season-long conversation. So the poll was simple. Which of these contracts is the worst? And I also said, feel free to explain your choice in the comments. The choices are those four guys: Kyle Tucker, Manny Machado, Bregman, and Bichette. We didn't have as much action on this, man. So the results, when you don't get as many votes as you would hope for, it's hard to read into them. Only 19 votes on this thing, which is one of our lowest totals ever. But I thought it was an interesting question. Tucker, Machado, and Bregman all got 21%. Bo Bichette won or lost, I guess you could say, with 37%, saying his contract's the worst. I disagree with that very much. And I think that's notable because I'm the Met fan. So if anyone is up in arms with like a contract for a guy not performing, you would think it would be someone like me. It's such a short-term deal. I know the AAV is crazy for what he's producing, but to me, that is not the worst contract on that list. I think the Manny Machado thing, if you see how much longer he's there, if he really is falling off a cliff, that contract is rough. And honestly, the Tucker one too. Like this dude is being paid like over $50 million a year for being like the 9th best player on that team right now. Or at least that's what it feels like. 5 home runs or something like that. So I disagree with the Bo Bichette winning that poll. What about you? Of those four guys, what do you think the worst contract is?
I look at the length of the deal and aging poorly. Manny Machado checks those boxes for me. As far as the immediate return on investment, the Bo Bichette deal does suck, especially where the Mets are at this junction. But there's a lot of other things to dissect with the Mets season that Bo Bichette feels like it's not even the top concern of the Mets offseason that they've had, the construction of this team and the decisions they made. Bo Bichette's it's a financial burden, of course, but Steve Cohen's pocketbook, you know what I mean? So I don't think it's going to affect the Mets long term. It's a short-term deal. The Tucker thing is the same sort of deal with in the immediate, it does hurt you. But for me, long-term value of the franchise, it's the Manny Machado one. Cause like, again, you were expecting it to age a little bit better as far as a hitter goes. I do think they all suck in their own way. So you made some good choices, but you have to consider the long, like, when are you getting out? When can you jump out of this airplane? And Bo Bichette, I mean, it sucks right now, but I mean, you don't have to bring him back, right? So,
well, I mean, I think he gets the choice to opt in, and obviously he's going to opt in after this season to make 40-something million after being terrible. Even if he puts a good
just
second
one
half
more
together,
year after this.
I think it's one, even if it's one or two more, depending on, I got to look at the structure again, but like he's not here all that long potentially, and even if he opts in, like there's no way he plays this badly again. Maybe I'll be cursing myself for those words next year, but I'd be shocked if he had 2 seasons this bad in a row. I guess we'll see. But I agree. I think when you really look at it, I think it's Manny.
I know we didn't discuss a lot of Mets today, but I'd be remiss if I didn't sort of wrap up our episode here if I didn't ask you your feelings as a Met fan. You speak for a lot of Met fans here on Table Setters. Did you have any strong feelings about seeing Steve Cohen sitting courtside for the Knicks while the Mets were getting their asses beat by the St. Louis Cardinals yesterday?
No, not really. Steve Cohen has been at a lot of Knicks games over the years, and it's a historic moment. He can afford it. I mean, everybody's been at those games, dude. Aaron Judge was
While
up
the
in the
Mets were
box.
live, though, that's what the criticism was. The Mets were playing.
Yeah, I wasn't upset at all. What him being at the Mets game is not going to change anything. He doesn't need to be at every single Mets game as the owner. He's not the manager. It doesn't bother me at all. I know people want to complain about everything, especially when they're not happy with their team's performance, but I just don't see the big deal. But I mean, yeah,
people were
it's
making a
been
big deal
cool.
about the Cohen thing because he was the first one to be critical of fans for not showing up to the games and saying, like, you show up and support your team, and then he's not even there when they're playing. That was the criticism on the Mets side of things today.
I get it, and that's an easy slant to take. And I mean, I'm critical of Cohen for like calling out the fans with that last year, and then letting all these fan favorites go, and his guy that he brought in not doing a good job of replacing them, or at least so far it seems like that. I'll be critical of him from that point, but I don't mind him being at the next game. But I got to say, like seeing, I think Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto were at the first game at MSG when they lost, and then Judge was there last night when they won up in the box. And he's got to be up there just watching how the New York crowd responds to that kind of thing, thinking like, man, I got to get one. And I know the Knicks didn't get it yet, but like, he's got to be watching that. Like, I need to get one before my career is done. And like, that's a separate conversation, but like, your years are going to go by quickly. You don't want to waste the unbelievable career that is Aaron Judge. So like, they've got to try to get one soon here.
I mean, as a Yankee fan, obviously rooting for them to win. And there was a lot of discussions, and even in like small, quiet moments in the sports calendar, New York loves to go back to who's the king in New York? Is it Jalen Brunson? Is it Aaron Judge? Is it somebody else? And there is a discussion. We talked about moments, the OG hand of God moment that we're going to be discussing forever. We mentioned the Bill Buckner moment. There is the moment for Aaron Judge right now in the biggest stage. It's Game 5 of the World Series. And I think for a lot of people, until he rights that wrong and he can win as many MVPs as he wants, he can hit as many home runs as he wants, fair or unfair, when you close your eyes and think of that World Series for the Yankees appearance, people think about that moment. And I think if they're being honest with themselves, and if Judge is being honest with himself, you don't want to be remembered for dropping a fly ball. And whether that's fair or not, sometimes moments are bigger. And that stage is the biggest stage in baseball. So for a lot of people, that exists for Aaron Judge, where you watch this New York Knicks team to kind of compare moments. And Josh Hart, you mentioned kind of missing the rabbit layup, and that he could have been an absolute disaster, like remembered for that moment, missing that shot. And if they eventually lost the series, but watch like Jalen Brunson coming up in a big moment, like dude has ice in his veins. No matter how shitty he's playing, how many turnovers he has, turns around, makes a three when it most matters. And then taking that shot felt strategic to me to let it bounce off the front of the rim. Like, I know people are saying he just missed the shot. No, it felt like he was trying to put Wemby outside the paint and wanted OG to be able to get in there. It almost felt like a drawn up play.
Yeah, either it goes in and you get it. It was a deep shot, so Wemby's not all the way out there on you. You get a clearer look. And I do think there's some strategy to that. I don't think necessarily it's drawn up to like purposely miss, but it's like either we make it or maybe we have a shot at the rebound, gives us a second chance here because Wemby's outside the paint. Like you said, it's a good point. But my favorite thing, I mean, we started this show with the Knicks. Maybe this is, we'll just finish with the Knicks.
What's your thoughts on the Judge thing first, though? Like, do you think people, fair or unfair, remember him for that moment?
I don't know, because there was a snowball effect in that inning. I mean, I thought of it the other day because Garrett Cole, there was a moment in the Yankee game he's pitching. He covers first base well in one inning, and the announcers are like, yeah, he'll never forget to cover first base again, because obviously that Game 5 moment with he and Rizzo and looking at each other like, what do we do? Was another big moment after the Judge fly ball drop. And then the next inning, Cole was late to cover first base and tried to make up for it by like sliding, didn't get there. So like the announcer was wrong. One inning later, it happened again. And but no, I don't know. I think Judge has done too much. He's still got some time here. I don't necessarily think that'll be held against him, because it wasn't. If it was the only mistake that game that completely cost him, maybe. But it ended up being a series of mental and physical errors
Similar to the
Just
Spurs,
one
man.
thing.
Everyone's
Yeah.
burying De'Aaron Fox, and it's like,
Oh, as they should, dude. Oh my
but
God.
again, it was a litany of errors that they made. Obviously,
Yes.
culminated in that moment, but still, they
But
had to blow that lead to begin.
Fox does not hold the stature of Aaron Judge of like,
100%.
hey,
He's a
we wouldn't
Sacramento
even,
King through and through. You know what I mean?
right. And he had some other bad moments too. It wasn't just that, and so did other Spurs. But like the biggest bonehead play maybe I've seen in a long time, since like the J.R. Smith moment with LeBron like screaming at him. But I will say, just to wrap up the Knicks, like one of my favorite things about Brunson and OG last night too, they just remain stoic. Even they just had one of the best wins you'll ever see, and neither of them would crack a smile. Brunson says like 0-0 mentality. OG is just like very calm, even though he had that moment. It reminds me of that famous like post game where I think Kobe Bryant and the Lakers were up 2-0 in the finals, something like that.
Yep.
And the reporter asked him something like, "Are you happy? Are you excited?" And he's just like stone faced, saying like, "Job not finished." And he looks at the reporter. He goes, "Job finished," and that's it. And like, not even full sentences. And it's one of the best moments you'll see because all business. So I love the Mamba mentality, if you will.
Yeah, one of the moments I'll remember from this Knicks series is the Jalen Brunson moment with the aforementioned Fox, where he's in his face like a stone cold killer, where they're in face to face and Jalen Brunson does not blink.
Right.
He's built different, man. Like even last night in the postgame, I know we're going all over the place with the Knicks, and we apologize. It's like a therapy session for us in a good way. I'm not sure if you've seen the inside the NBA where they're sitting on MSG court and Draymond Green, they interviewed Jalen Brunson, and Draymond Green wanted to apologize to Jalen for calling him a munchkin or whatever. And
I saw that, yeah.
Jalen, if looks could kill, like he was just staring at Draymond Green, like not accepting the apology, and just it was very awkward and very tense. And Jalen Brunson takes all that shit personally, where these people are continuing to make jokes about his size, like that fuels him. And like when he gets pie face from Wemby and he doesn't get the calls, and he's called, these refs are not giving the superstar respect. I feel like it fuels this dude and it makes him like superhuman.
Yeah, I think like we said how likable the team is, but in a way, when your team, especially a team that hasn't won in decades, if they can win, you're always going to be insanely excited as a fan. But like this is one where I would be we don't know Jalen Brunson personally, but I would be so happy for this dude. Like not only would I'd be unbelievably excited as a Knicks fan, but like I would feel so good for him and the others, and Cat also, like the reasons for feeling really good for him and all these guys. But like Brunson, man, like it's just so deserved because like you said, all the doubters of like, yeah, he's good, but he's more of a one, to use a WWE term, like a B plus, solid B plus player, right? Like that kind of thing. So for him, if they can finish it off, like just to prove everybody wrong. And it is pretty rare for a team where their best player is under whatever the size is, 6 something. It's very rare for teams with a best player that is on the shorter end of things to win the championship. So one more, man. One more.
We shall see. Well, let's come around third here and end our episode and say what we're looking forward to for the rest of the week in baseball.
Coming around third.
All right, as we wrap up this episode, we thank you guys so much for listening. As always, make sure to follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at TableSittersPod. And we haven't done it in a bit. Make sure you guys go to Dugout Mugs, our affiliate over here. Maybe make a purchase. Help us out over here. And use code TS10, I believe, to save 10% off your order today. Dugout Mugs has a lot of great stuff. What I'm looking forward to, Devin, of course, we got the Yankees, a big series against the Blue Jays at home, looking to continue their hot streak here, trying to stay. They were the first American League team to reach 40 wins, sitting at 41 right now, but they're still in second place. Big series against the Blue Jays. Blue Jays are only a few games back from them, single digits, as we mentioned, under 500, but you want to bury them. At home, bury the Blue Jays. And I'm also very much looking forward to the College World Series. I'm very excited to check that out. Of course, the NBA Finals on Saturday, all eyes on San Antonio.
Yeah, what I'm looking forward to, Knicks in 5. Team USA, first game in the World Cup will be fun as well. College World Series, like you said. On the MLB side, I think 2 series catch my eye. Dodgers, White Sox. There's a litmus test for the White Sox. We talked a lot about them tonight. You're home against the 2-time defending World Series champions. Let's see what you got. That could be a big confidence builder, or could let a little air out of the balloon if the Dodgers come and establish dominance there. And then the other one, Phillies Brewers. Those are two teams that are very much expected to have a big say in who comes out of the National League once again. Been in the forefront right there with the Dodgers for years now. So I think that's another good one to keep an eye on to see how those two teams are doing.
And let's not forget, Tarek Skubal will be back in a Tigers uniform on the bump on Saturday, I believe. So let's see if he can kind of wake these sleeping Tigers up right now, sitting at 24-40, having their best pitcher back. And there's some motivation on his end. Will he be traded? Will he look good enough to stay in the rotation? And will he eventually be traded? And what uniform does he wear? Or is he going to stay in Detroit? That's going to be a storyline to follow here that we're going to keep you guys updated here at Table Setters.
Yeah, that one's not going to go away. There will be a lot. I've seen basically every team in the majors rumored to be able to put a package together for him. It'll be very interesting. If he is traded, I'm so intrigued to see what the package is, being a rental, right? That's going to be fascinating stuff. And if you right now, I might be on the outside of most people's guesses here, but if you ask me right now, I know they're playing poorly. I would guess that he's going to be a Tiger until the end of the year. He's not going to be traded.
You already waited this long, and if it doesn't feel like you're going to get the maximum package that you could have got last year, so you might as well hold on. And
sure,
you know what I mean? Like, sell some tickets, have some people come check out the team while Tarek Skubal's there, and you can at least say you tried. But
dude,
I
saw what I think it was a Bleacher Report. They do these a lot, and I think some of them are purposefully just ridiculous to get clicks. But like 10 big possible trades, but also like realistic. And one of them was the Mets trading Freddie Peralta back to the Brewers. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, could Freddie Peralta be traded? Absolutely. Free agent at the end of the year. Apparently wants the Max Fried deal and is not pitching like he should get that by any means. But back to the Brewer, I don't see that happening.
He's got to go more than 5 innings, dude. If you want to be considered an ace, you got to get out there and go deep in games.
5-inning Freddie, man. 5-inning Freddie. Yeah, not great.
So, yeah, well, we appreciate all you guys checking out the show. As I mentioned, Table Setters Pod on IG and on X. We'll be back next week talking all things baseball, hopefully being able to celebrate an NBA championship with our New York Knicks. We appreciate you guys as always. Until next time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.
Has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.